Today I'll explain to you those weird little accents that we have on some letters in Polish, just for kicks. Well, I'll try to explain. Don't expect too much from my videos, please. They won't be in an alphabetical order though, because this could be a little confusing, so I sorted them by the type of accent that they have. I think it's a bit simpler. So maybe first the ones with the curved thingy on the bottom right. So there are two letters that have this accent. There's A and there's E. The A letter, well, it looks like an A, just with a thingy, but the pronunciation of both of these letters is quite different, because I feel like the A with the thingy is more similar to O, because it's on. So there's A and there's on. A great example to show the difference is the word pająk, because there's pa, but there's yonk. Or there are two different words, being bonk, which is a type of insect, or it can also be a fart in a very metaphorical way, and there's bak, which is a tank, but like a tank in a car where you put the gas, you know, not the huge military vehicle or whatever. The next one is the E with the, we call it a tail, with a tail. This one is more similar to the letter E than on is to A, because it's on. And here I can again make an example of two different words. There's lek, which means medicine, and there's lęk, that means fear. I feel like the on and on sounds are kind of French sounds, and they're very nasal, so you kind of need to close your nose from the inside to say them properly. On and on. You can even do it like this. On, on. And in many words these letters are pronounced as on, and m, which can bring a bit of confusion in spelling. I already mentioned the words like penseta, tempo, or stempel. Yeah. And also on at the end of words is, I think, always pronounced as e. For example, when we want to say I like you, it's lubię cię. Even though there are e's with tails, you don't say lubię cię. It's very unnatural. And some people could not agree in this area with me and say that it's a Łódź thing or whatever. And okay, I am from Łódź, but I promise you, it is the proper way. When someone says the "ę" at the end of words, it's very weird. So now the ones with the diagonal thing above them. When it comes to consonants with this type of accent, they are always just short versions of the original letters combined with I. Now let me explain. There's chi and ch, ni and ny, shi and sh, and ji and zh. Yeah. Chi is a bit similar to the English ch. I cannot pronounce this sound, okay? I'm sorry. Or to Italian ci. I think like mi piace, you know, this kind of stuff. Cilecina. Ni always reminds me of Monty Python.
Please, no more!
For she, I always say that it's the sound of peeing. Like shh, you know? And ji, I can't compare to anything. It's a very peculiar sound. There aren't very strict rules on where the long ones come in a word, but the short ones are never before vowels. It never happens in Polish. In many other Slavic languages, it does happen, but not in Polish. It's just impossible. These letters are mostly after vowels or before other consonants, or at the end of words. There may be some more rules to it, but these are the basics, I think. And when it comes to J, it can also be combined with D, which makes a completely new sound, which is J. And there's also the long version being G. There's only one vowel that has the diagonal thing above it, and it's O. It's pronounced exactly the same as the Polish letter U, which is U. And it can also bring a lot of problems in orthography. But it is technically an O. We call it an O with a line, or a crossed O, something like that. And many people say that it's a crossed U, or a U with a line, but it's not correct. You're not supposed to say it like that, because it is an O, and it appears after an O in the alphabet. The only thing that it has in common with the letter U is the pronunciation, which also wasn't like that always. I don't think it was. Because at first it was a double O, and then it was an O with 2 dots or something, and then it developed to what it is now. So it is an O that is pronounced as U. Simple as that. So how do we recognize which letter should appear in a word? Which U should be in a word? Well, in the process of learning, we just remember eventually. But there are rules for most of it, and you can just always think about the rules when you're not sure. So in Polish, everything is about inflection, okay? And cases. So also here. When a word with an U sound inflects into a word with an O, an A, or an E, it means that 99% of the time it's supposed to be written with a crossed O. Example, mówić, to speak. And there's also mowa, which is speech, as a noun. So again, here I can give you a pair of words that have a different U, and their meaning can change completely if you write them wrong. Lód. With a crossed O, it's ice, and with the normal U, it's people, but people as a singular noun, like a population of a certain place or something like that. And now another diagonal accent, but the one and only in Polish that goes through the letter directly. I think this one is the most confusing to foreigners. The crossed L. I already mentioned Łódź, right? This word is a perfect example of Polish letters. And also it makes a completely different sound than L, because it's L and E. And when you compare it to English, you can compare the letter E with a W, because it's a very similar sound. And now an easier example of a word than Łódź, łyk, which is a sip. That's a nice word. It's very important to remember that these are 2 separate letters. There's L and there's E. And you need to be very careful sometimes, because it can change the meaning of your sentence completely if you forget about the crossing line. For example, you might be giving someone a blowjob instead of a favor. Well, łaska is more like mercy, but in this case I think it's more like a favor. And the final one, the one and only letter in the Polish language that has a dot above it, and it's ż. Not to be confused with either a z and ź. Ż and ż are different letters. This one is also problematic in spelling because it sounds the same as RZ. Now, not everywhere, because in some dialects there is still a difference between those two, but in like a basic Polish, they are completely identical. I already once made an example of życie and życie. So again, how do we know? Well, it's pretty simple because the letter ż comes from z, and the RZ comes from an R. So it is also a matter of the word's inflection. A great example here is każe. If you write it with a z with a dot, it means that someone is making someone do something, that they're commanding something. And when you write it with an RZ, it's that someone is punishing someone. The basic forms of the verbs are kazać and karać. So they are different, but in the one case they sound completely the same. So this one word is kind of a problem. Even I make mistakes in it sometimes, or I just need to think for a minute, which is very uncommon because I think I'm pretty good at spelling. So yeah, it is a problem. And of course, again, there are more rules to it, and some things we just need to memorize. So there are words in Polish that include a lot of these letters. There's, for example, the word żółć, which is made only from Polish letters. It's insane. It means the color yellow, like as a noun. Yellowness, something like that. Or it can also mean, and I forgot to check that, okay, because it's a medical term, kinda. Bile? Like the thing you have in your stomach? Yeah, but in some cases it can also mean some kind of bitterness or something like that. In a kind of metaphorical way, is a complicated word. There's also różdżka or żółw, and of course źdźbło. Yep, you heard that right. And at the end I need to note that not only the crossed O has its history. I only made a little overview over this one particular letter, but most of them have their own history. I mean, you know, it's a pretty natural process that the language develops and it is different from what it was before and stuff. And actually, when I was preparing for this video, I realized that I lied to you. And I did it in the most popular video on this channel, the most watched video. Wow. It's not like every word in Polish is pronounced exactly as it's written. It is like that for most vowels, but "ę" can be an exception here. But consonants are freaking crazy, man. So I'm starting to think that it's some kind of first language illusion. That you just always think that everything is the most simple in your own language. You're so used to the pronunciation of your first language that you just find every foreign pronunciation weird and yours seem the most logical. Right? Isn't it like that? I think it is. Okay, so that's it. I hope you found it kind of interesting or something. I hope I explained everything right. People seem to like my explanations of things, which is weird because I always thought I was very messy in explaining anything. But yeah, I'm glad. So as always, thank you very much for watching the video. Wow, I said it very fast this time. And see you in the next one. Bye. To nie kończyna, to koniczyna.